Hello everyone, welcome back to Zoological Point and to another episode of No Stupid Questions. Now, let's see what today's questions are going to be. Shoot. Good enough. Hello Zoological Point. I'm writing to ask you several questions about geography. How are the hemispheres divided? Is Null Island a real place? Where is the international date line? And what are the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn? Sincerely, ... That spells butt, doesn't it? Well, thank you for your cues, but let's see if we can A them. Hey everyone, Cal from the future here. Now, before we move on with the rest of today's video, I did want to take a brief moment and bring your attention to something that's really important right now, and that is the Maui Wildfires. In case you're unfamiliar, Maui is currently being devastated by wildfires, and they are absolutely terrible. They're destroying housing, property, wild areas, they're displacing people left and right. And since I talk about Hawaii in this video, I felt like it was only fair that I help raise awareness of the cause and how you can help out. Now, the obvious and most effective way to help out in this situation is, of course, to give money. Now, I understand that there are countless places where you can give money. It can be a bit discombobulating to see all these sources. So with the help of one of my friends who is a bigger philanthropist than I will ever be, we have compiled a list of heavily vetted charities and organizations that are either directly working to fight the fires or working to help the people who have been affected by the fires. And all of those are going to be linked down in the description down below. Massive props to my friend who was willing to help me out on this, so thank you. I always say if you can't give money, you can at least give attention, so just maybe spread it to people who may be able to help out, and sooner or later we're going to get out of this a-okay. I know as an American we haven't always treated Hawaii the best, both pre or post military coup, but let's start building bridges rather than barriers, I say. Thank you all for indulging me in my little soapbox, and back to your regularly scheduled programming. As you probably know, if you possess a brain and haven't been brainwashed by a cult, the Earth is a sphere. And for the sake of navigation, cartographers a long time ago decided it would be a lot easier if we were to simply divide the sphere into sections, and those became the hemispheres, hemi coming from the word half and sphere. Now, our planet has 4 hemispheres, and those are Earth, Wind, Fire, North, East, South, and West. The lines that separate the hemispheres are the equator, which separates the northern from the southern hemisphere, and the prime meridian, which separates the western hemisphere from the eastern hemisphere. The equator runs through the countries of Brazil, Colombia, Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Republic of the Ecuador, Gabon, Indonesia, Kenya, Kiribati, the Maldives, Sao and Principe, Somalia, and Uganda. On the other hand, the prime meridian is located at 0 degrees longitude, and it runs right through the heart of Greenwich, London. That is the basis of standard time ever since 1884. So if you've ever seen the expression Greenwich Mean Time, that is simply referring to England. It confused me a lot as a kid, so don't worry. The prime meridian goes through the countries of Algeria, technically Antarctica, Burkina Faso, France, Ghana, Mali, Spain, and the worst part of the United Kingdom. Now, despite how cool it would be to have a place like Null Island, where you're able to lay down and be in all 4 hemispheres at once, it is an urban legend. The closest island to the coordinates 00 is San Antonio de Pal, which is a territory of Equatorial Guinea, a country named after the equator that is not on the equator. It's also very interesting how it got its name, because it's shared with 3 other countries. Brief history lesson. The word Guinea refers to Western Africa when it was under the rule of colonizers, and when those countries gained independence, they gained the freedom to name themselves whatever they wanted, and surprisingly, 3 of them chose the exact same thing. So we have Guinea-Bissau, we have Equatorial Guinea, and Original Flavor Guinea, which is just called Guinea, sometimes Guinea Cockney. Also Papua New Guinea, but that's in Oceania or Australasia or wherever it is now. On the topic of separating the hemispheres, there's a bit of a problem. You see, the equator runs around the entirety of the Earth, but the prime meridian only goes from the North Pole to the South Pole. So how do we make sure we know what's east and west? Well, we would use our handy friend, the 180th meridian, which is located the exact opposite side of the globe from Greenwich. I think it'd be really funny if we use a dumb name for it, like the anti-meridian, since we have the prime meridian. And I'm just remembering that's actually what it's called, so And so, since Greenwich is used as the basis for standard time, it would make sense that the 180th meridian, or the anti-meridian if you want to be like that, would also act as the international dateline, right? Ha! Wrong! That was a bit rude of me, so I apologize. You are partially correct. For a brief stint in time, the 180th meridian was the international dateline, but a few problems arose from that. So if we were to separate the dateline as the 180th meridian, that would make part of Russia, Fiji, and New Zealand on the same day as the Americas, which is just confusing. So we have engineered a new line which is designed to bend around countries so that they are with the rest of their nations. For example, the Churchill Peninsula of Russia, there's a bend around Alaska so that Russia and Alaska are on the same time. It's really genius. And so it just goes down, slowly bending around islands, and it doesn't do anything stupid like bend up and around and cause a bunch of headaches. Oh yeah, Kiribati exists. I think it's time to address the elephant in the room. Well, I don't have an elephant plushie, and manatees are close relatives, so this is the best I could do. What's wrong with Kiribati? Other than the fact that they are spelled Kiribati, but pronounced Kiribati, and have a city named Banana? Nothing. They, like most people, like money, and their primary trading partners are Australia, Japan, and Malaysia. So they opted to be, even though they are part of them are on the Western Hemisphere, they opted to be on the same time as the Eastern Hemisphere. That way they could conduct trade on the same day, and it's more efficient, more fruitful, more money for more people. And that is why the international dateline actually bends up and around Kiribati. And if you think that's confusing, don't worry, it's going to get much worse from here on out. So this small speck in the middle of the Pacific is Jarvis Island. It is a small US territory and one of the few that we didn't have to do a genocide to acquire, so go US. As logic would state, being a few hundred kilometers away, one would think that they are only an hour or two apart. Kiribati is 25 hours ahead of Jarvis Island. Hey, you want to destroy your brain even more? This is Midway. It's an important naval base that was used by the US during World War II, and it's also the setting of a Roland Emmerich film that I can't remember the name of. Between Jarvis Island and Midway, we have the Hawaiian Islands. Since they're on the same line of longitude, it would make sense that they're on the same time zone, right? So, funny story, Hawaii is actually on the same time zone as the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. I'm going to move on to the last question before my brain blows a synapse. Located at 23.4 degrees north and south of the equator respectively, the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn are the northernmost and southernmost spots where the sun can appear directly overhead during a solstice. At those respective times, they are the planet's subsolar spot. That is when the rays of the sun run perpendicular to the Earth. They're called the tropics because it is in between these two lines that most of the planet's tropical biomes are, primarily rainforests. As you could probably guess, they get their name from the constellations that were most prevalent at the time and not their prevalence of crabs and ibexes. Funnily enough, thanks to a little something called axial precession, those constellations are not the most prevalent at those times from those places. If we were to base it off of what we can see now, it should be the Tropic of Gemini and the Tropic of Sagittarius, but there's a lot of paperwork to change these things, so we'll keep them as it is for now. And yes, this does mean that if you were born in late June, 3,000 years ago, that you would actually be a Gemini rather than a Cancer.
Yes, science!
Hopefully that answered your questions today, but I know I had... Oh, there's another question on the back. Why does the equator appear like a giant dashed line? Does it look like that in person? How should I know? I live in Seattle, Washington, and the closest point to me on the equator that isn't just open ocean is Quito, Ecuador, a good 5,000 kilometers away. I mean, I guess I could always just go on Google and look up pictures of the equator, but that just turns up globes and maps. So I guess the only reasonable solution would be to travel to South America personally and attempt to see the equator for myself, but that's crazy. Who would ever do that? So as you could probably tell by those weird squirrels behind me, I'm in South America. I recently had the opportunity to travel to Ecuador and spend time with family, and it was a phenomenal experience. Quito is a wonderful place to visit. It has deep ties to art, history, nature, everything you can imagine. I enjoyed Ecuador so much I was even willing to overlook the fact that for whatever ungodly reason, their IHOPs serve pasta. One of the places that I was fortunate enough to visit was La Mitad del Mundo. For those of you who failed high school Spanish, that means the middle of the world. It is where the equator goes through the country, and it is a beautiful place. There's a museum, there are gift shops, and above all, llamas. While I was there, I couldn't help but notice a surprising lack of something. Where's the big dashed line going through the sky? Did the globe I grew up with in my room lie to me? Oh well, I hope that answers your question, but... Well then, I hope that you've learned something new today. I know I certainly did. I learned that alpaca wool is a lot itchier than it looks. If you have a question that you want answered by me, you can leave it in the comments down below or email the hotline, which will be linked in the description. Until next time, just remember, there are no stupid questions, only stupid answers.